Hello, this is Photography Gamer. Welcome back to the channel. Today I'm reviewing Dark Souls 2 Scholar of the First Sin for the PS4. Dark Souls 2 Scholar of the First Sin is a combat-based adventure game developed by From Software. You play as a cursed, a soul who is unable to die, which eventually leads one to become a hollow, an undead creature with no memory or purpose. In the beginning, you travel to a new kingdom where you're initially tasked with obtaining 4 great souls, which in turn will lead you onto further arduous tasks as you progress through the campaign. This edition features all the DLC including Crown of the Sunken King, Old Iron King and Ivory King chapters. So, what is the game like to play? Well, the basic premise in Dark Souls is to kill enemies, collect their souls and use these souls to level up your character's statistics. You can also use souls to buy weapons, armor, rings of power and magic spells. The leveling up system is much better this time because when you alter one of the statistics it automatically shows you what that's going to impact, whether it's your carry load, whether it's your spell casting ability or whatever. The combat is almost identical to the first game with some minor changes. You can use light and heavy attacks, you can block, parry, use shields or switch from one or two-handed use of your weapons seamlessly. Fights are slow and tactical where you have to learn your opponent's pattern and dodge and strike at the appropriate moments. Saying that, the 360-degree combat is pretty poor, which is a real issue this time due to the higher volume of enemies that you're going to encounter. Like when you compare it to something like Shadow of Mordor, the system here for handling crowds seems very underdeveloped and poorly implemented, which makes group encounters one of the least enjoyable parts of the experience. The enemies are varied and you'll encounter many bosses as well, which will really challenge your abilities and statistic levels. One other thing to note is Dark Souls 2 seems much harder right from the get-go. Early on you're going to run into overpowered enemies all over the place and it really doesn't do anything to help new player engagement. Add to that the group enemy attacks and the first stages of the game can be a bit of a struggle, not just in terms of progression but in terms of player enjoyment. The game world is pretty varied and interesting and you start off in Majula, a hub village with vendors to buy weapons from, spells, level up your character, all that kind of stuff. But the map compared to Dark Souls 1 just really isn't the same standard. Each region feels disconnected and there isn't any sense of continuity. They seem like unrelated regions all connected by tunnels. It has no sense of relative context compared to the first game's stunning design. So what are the main differences really between Dark Souls 1 and 2? Well, you've got more enemies to deal with at any one time, which results in several deaths early on because you don't have enough stamina. The enemy strikes now track your movements, so dodging is a lot harder than before and often you'll think you've evaded danger only to get nailed by the new tracking system. If you keep dying, you get overly harsh death penalties this time, which is a bit overzealous really. You can now fast travel right from the beginning, which I don't think helps the sense of adventure. As the first game, it was so interesting due to the sense of exploration and discovery, but having fast travel available straight away, it does take some of that enjoyment away. Overall, the game, it just seems to be harder all round for no real justifiable reason, other than From Software seem like they're trying to consolidate their reputation garnered from the first installment. Graphically, the game is a minor improvement on the first one, but it's still a bit rough around the edges. The highlight as before is the armor and the weapon design, but the game world it's fairly underwhelming in terms of the detail. The music is a minor improvement on the original with some atmospheric and well suited tracks. The voice acting is solid throughout and the combat sound effects they're fine, but there's a lot of recycled sounds here I noticed from the first game. Okay, what's good and what's bad? What's good? The combat is tense, strategic and very challenging. Leveling up is clearer and it's easy to understand what exactly the categories affect. It's a huge challenge to undertake and you will feel like you've actually achieved something when you eventually get through it. What's bad? The game world is a downgrade when compared to the superior map from Dark Souls 1. The difficulty spikes here and doesn't really improve the balance between enjoyment and challenge. Allowing fast travel from the start takes some sense of the adventure away. The large mob attacks, especially in the early stages, make for some really unnecessarily frustrating action. And the tracking system which has been implemented really seems to tilt the combat balance a little bit too much in favour of the enemies. So, what's the verdict? Dark Souls 2 Scholar of the First Sin is a game that improves on the original in some ways, but also downgrades the experience in several others. It's a difficult game to enjoy due to the more painful start, increased overall difficulty, and the volume increase in enemy numbers. But again, if you stick with it, you will get over that hill, but it seemed to be not as well balanced as Dark Souls Remastered. The combat system is still fantastic though, with tense, exciting fights taking place in perilous locations full of danger. But in some fights it feels like it doesn't really matter how good you are, you're just going to get nailed. You're going to die regardless until you've gone away, grinded for a while, leveled up and returned for the rematch. More so than before, Dark Souls 2 is a game for people who've got a huge amount of spare time on their hands. If you live a busy life and you only have a limited time to play games, then you won't get the most out of this. When I played it originally, I had the time, so I was able to grind my way through it over a course of months, but when I finally got to the end, I was kind of done with the series. Not that I didn't enjoy Dark Souls 2, to some extent, I did, but definitely not as much as the first game, as I found it a little bit unbalanced and it leant too far toward trying to be the bad boy of the games industry. Be even harder, be even more obtuse in its challenge rather than being a better game. So my score for Dark Souls 2 Scholar of the First Sin is 8.5 out of 10. Okay, that was the review. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe. This is Photography Gamer, signing off. Thank you.